Welcome back to Country Ridge Sports, everybody. Today, we're continuing the college football 2019 coverage with our week 3 to 4 power rankings. It's pretty simple. This will be a little different than the regular top 25 poll. We're not just going to move teams up based on if they win or lose, similar to how I've seen several other YouTubers do it. But, yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get started. We'll start out with 11 to 25. This is not quite the top 10, but still great teams that have played solid football thus far. Also, the teams that just missed out, Kansas State got a big win over Mississippi State. Power 5 SEC team on the road. Maybe not the best SEC team, but that's still a very solid win. Kentucky, I have them very high, at least in comparison to other people, but I think they've played great to start the season. Definitely exceeded what I thought they would be. I thought they would go on a sharp decline, and I think they showed in their game against Florida that they definitely can still play as good football, or almost as good football as they did in last year. And TCU, they got another solid win. Very impressive road win against Purdue. Another very good Power 5 team. I think Purdue's a tiny bit underrated, but it's still a great win, and just barely missed out. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on every team just because that would take forever. There's 25 teams to go through. I'll just kind of sum it up. 25 California, they're below Washington, even though they got a big win over Washington. Just because I don't think their body of work has been as impressive as the Huskies. 24 BYU, two amazing wins over USC and Tennessee, both very good Power 5 teams. Boise State, solid as always, undefeated, had that big win over FSU in week 1. Michigan State, number 22, they obviously dropped a bit from last week because of their loss to Arizona State, 10-3. That's just a bad loss. Number 21, Virginia, they are looking like the second best team in the ACC, and they will definitely be competing for a spot in the ACC championship game whenever it comes time. Number 20, Iowa, just looking like a solid team. I think they're undefeated up to this point and got a big win over Iowa State in a close game. Number 19, Washington, as I said, they did lose to California, but I just think their line of work has been more impressive than the Golden Bears. Number 18, Washington State had a solid win. I think it was a Friday night game, but I had them just edging out Washington. 17, Texas A&M. Their really only slip-up has been against Clemson, but it wasn't a super large blowout, and I mean, Clemson is one of the best teams in the country. So I think after a demolition of Lamar, that they deserve to be top 25. UCF playing great football like they had the past couple years, undefeated, huge win over Stanford that really shows that they're not a fluke team that can't play anybody. They went out and scheduled a good Power 5 team, which really boosts their case for, I won't say playoff, but really helps them in comparison to maybe weak schedules from the past. Number 15, Penn State, just playing solid football, not much to say. They had that game where they scored a ton of points, and they're just playing solid in the Big Ten right now. Number 14, Oregon. Now, I think I'm more high on Oregon than a lot of people are. I think that people are kind of underrating them simply because they had that loss to Auburn, but Auburn is a top 10 team in the country, as you will come to see later. And so if it wasn't for them running into a top 10 team in the country and what was almost a home game for the Tigers, seeing as Oregon had to travel half across the country, then they would be undefeated, and they're playing great football, so I'm definitely high on them, and I think they could very realistically win out and win the Pac-12. Next up is Michigan. Now, Michigan had a bye week, so it's kind of tough to judge them after week 3 with all the other teams pretty much playing a game. But, I mean, that almost lost to Army. They did persevere and get through it, but, I mean, if not for a shanked field goal by somebody who had never kicked a field goal in a college football game before, then they would be sitting at 1-1 with a loss to an unranked independent team. So that's not too good, but I hope they can persevere because this is a team that I would really like to see make a run at the Big Ten title game. Number 12, Wisconsin, the second best team in the Big Ten as of now. They've absolutely crushed the two teams they've played. They were another team with a bye week, but I think that it wasn't like we needed reassurance after a week of break. they absolutely crushed the two opponents. One, so that like Central Michigan wasn't something that you needed to worry about. South Florida was something that people were maybe possibly picking an upset, and they absolutely dominated. So that's not really a problem. Number 11, Florida. I think that this team isn't as good as maybe they should have been, at least as people would have had them in the preseason. They're still a very good team, and they've persevered, especially with that 11-point comeback in the fourth quarter. So yeah, they're not as good, but I believe that if they can hit their stride, I know they're currently sitting at, I think, the 5th best team in the SEC by these rankings, but I mean, that's almost a top 10 spot, and it's very deserving of it. So moving into the top 10, we have Texas. Texas is 2-1, a very impressive loss. I mean, they just had their win to Rice. I know it's kind of weird to say impressive loss, but I mean, if it comes down to Texas winning out and beating Oklahoma in that Big 12 title game, then, I mean, if LSU turns out to be a contender, I mean, if they fall out and even lose 2 to 3 games, I think that that's still one of the better losses in the country, especially with how LSU was playing at the time. So, number 10, Texas. Number 9, Utah. Best team in the Pac-12 right now. Very solid win against BYU, who is currently sitting at 24th place with wins over USC and Tennessee, two very good Power 5 teams. Number 8 is Auburn, just undefeated. It's really teams above them because Auburn is just been playing phenomenal football over the past couple of years, and they're on a path that I think could definitely take them to, I won't say an SEC title game because I think the SEC is just too rough this year, but they're definitely on the path to a New Year's Six bowl. Number 7, Notre Dame. They have an absolutely tough road test against Georgia. This will be a massive game, probably game of the week, honestly, with the winner likely winning up or ending up in the top 5 in my rankings and probably in general AP rankings. Number 6, LSU, a 3rd best team in the SEC, but I mean, they're playing great. They're playing phenomenal football, and started out a little slow against, I think, Northwestern State. Northwestern State, but ended up winning 65-14. It's not really a problem. Huge win. They're playing great football. Definitely a contender. Possibly college football playoff worthy. I don't know. They'd have to go through Alabama and Georgia and Auburn. So, I mean, it'll be tough. But number 5, Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind. And the offense for Oklahoma is probably the best in the country right now. The defense isn't quite as good, and it's not so much for the fact that I think Oklahoma is necessarily worse. It's just I think these teams above are playing too good of football to maybe be put below them, or for Oklahoma to be mixed in. So number 4, Ohio State. Little high. I know the AP, I think, has them at 6 or 5. I'm high on this team. I absolutely think they could make a run at the college football playoffs. And if they keep playing this brand of football, they could maybe make a run at the title game. I really hope that they don't get left out because of a stupid road loss, because that generally happens. And I know that you have to penalize them. You have to look at the whole entire body of work. But I think if they continue to play like they've opened the season with, they're dominant. And I think people have been underrated in the past couple of years because they eventually slip up on the road. So I don't think that needs to happen, and I think they're definitely a top 4 team as of now, and I think, judging by how they're playing, will stay that way till the end of the season. Number 3, Georgia, 2nd best team in the SEC, absolutely dominant win over Arkansas State, 55-0, giving us no reason to remove them from the top 3. I wanted to put Ohio State higher, but Georgia is just that good. Number 2, Alabama. So now we know who number 1 is. But Alabama's just been playing great. A tiny bit of a scare, at least in the first quarter against South Carolina. But I think that's more so credit to the part of South Carolina. They're not going to get enough credit this year because they have just a doozy of a schedule. I don't know if I realistically see them get into a bowl. But South Carolina is a very quality football team. And Alabama beat them by 24 points on the road, so I don't think that's a cause of concern. It's a normal Alabama dominant win. We'll wait for them to get a really competitive game, which might test them, but up until this point, they're playing amazing football, and I think the South Carolina win will show up on the resume as a very quality one, especially even if South Carolina ends up winning 5 or 6 games, or even 4. I mean, their schedule is just so tough. But the whole body of work, the offense is playing great. The defense looking like it might be better than last year. Might return to the 2015, 2016 form. If not for the team above playing their opponent not close at all, then I think Alabama would have been number 1. But, of course, number 1 is Clemson. Started out a tiny bit slow against Syracuse. Only got 1 touchdown by the first quarter. And Syracuse was playing pretty solid against them, but it wound up being 41-6. So Clemson was number 1. I would have put Alabama if maybe they had played Syracuse a little closer, but that's an absolute dominant win. 35-point victory doesn't warrant them being anywhere lower than where they are now. Trevor Lawrence hasn't hit his stride yet, which is extremely scary because either he's just overrated, which is highly unlikely, or he's going to go crazy soon, and Clemson is going to go from top-tier team to, I don't even know how to describe it, just phenomenal team. Yeah, they're not, I won't say sizable lead is number 1, because Alabama is definitely up there, and, Georgia and even Ohio State, but they're definitely the bona fide number 1 team as of now. And that will conclude our power rankings for Week 3 going into Week 4. Make sure to tune in. Make sure to subscribe to Country Ridge Sports for more awesome content like this. We'll be coming out with more power rankings for all the different sports and, of course, more coverage of college football. Make sure to comment down your list or top 25 or even just your top 10 or top 4, whatever it is. And, yeah, I think that's all for me. Thanks so much for watching. Always your Nicky Guy number 1. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.